First up is the review of the middle school reconfiguration. I'm sure Vicki, you guys know all about that anyways. It's really work for us anyways. Call it over. First up is to approve the minutes from May 1st. Is that the last time we met, May 1st? It seemed like it was yesterday. I missed it the whole summer. So I thought this meeting was next week. So any motion to approve the minutes from May 1st?
Second.
Any comments, questions, changes?
No,
All those in favor? Here. Two extensions. And that brings us to joint program discussion. And first up is review of middle school reconfiguration. Do you all know the new principal, Juliana, at the Bartlett school?
My name is Hughes.
Oh, okay.
I hate Hughes.
I recognize you. When I saw you, I was like,
This is daughter.
So I think it's
so am I explaining our new configuration? Is that
probably good. Yeah, than me.
all right?
Unless
So
Scott wants to give it a shot.
I'll give it a shot first. So, as you know, this is the first year that we have sixth grade in our middle school. So far, it's been going well. We're still always looking for ways to improve and streamline it. A lot of effort went into the beginning of the year, building on our advisory program we previously had, and really making it more structured, trying to put some things in place to help students more with organization, with that transition, with sixth graders getting a little bit younger, just developmentally, trying to bridge down to where they are and still meet the needs of the 7th and 8th graders and what they want. I would say our 8th graders have been fantastic role models, recognizing that it's not just about them, it's about making sure that the new kids in the middle school feel welcome. And I think, kudos to them for making that happen. It really, those kids are the ones that make it great. So certainly the teachers have done an awful lot of trying to set up some things the first couple of weeks of school, a lot of bonding activities. You may have heard of some of the trips that they went on. Our 8th graders went on their annual hike to Elizabeth Hut. But while that was happening, the 6th and 7th graders went on a hike on their own to Mount Willard together to have the 6th graders meet the 7th graders. And then the following day, the 6th graders did the train ride up to Crawford Notch with the teachers and did some activities, getting to know each other with the middle school teachers, and then they knew each other, but really kind of getting to know the staff. And the 7th graders went and did a ropes course over at the mountain to do some bonding and team building activities there. And then when they all came back the following week, there were opportunities for the kids to kind of share those experiences and bring the leadership and community building initiatives that they've done back to the school setting. We didn't do a lot of intensive class work, a lot of academic work the first couple of weeks. It was more about just building that sense of community. Now we're kind of into the swing of things. The teachers have relaxed a little bit. They're like, how do we teach 6th graders? And now they are feeling good about it and liking the model. And I would say, since this is mostly a Jackson crowd, we're always thrilled to have the Jackson students. They integrate very, very nicely. I don't think I could figure out who's Jackson, who's not. But whenever they're part of the middle school, they just blend right in. So again, that's kind of kudos to them. I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
So at the moment, the 6th graders are in advisory with the 7th and 8th.
Yeah.
And
Lunch together.
And those are
So they follow the same schedule.
But those are the only two things they actually do together on a daily basis?
So there's a few other things. So we have a recess and snack. They're all together for that. They are currently not together in in unified arts, but they are together sometimes in their what's called flex time. It's this, time where they can choose. So there might be 6th, 7th, and 8th graders together in an art or in open gym or one of the other
So
options.
just as much as it was with the 7th and 8th.
That's right. It's just adding one more
Yeah.
level, and that's again where really the 8th graders have stepped up and said, we want to make the 6th graders feel welcome instead of saying, oh, you're the little kids, you're the new kids. They have welcomed them really nicely.
And I got one more for you. And have you guys put any thought into if so, when 6th graders might move into middle school sports?
I have thought about that a lot. We've had some conversations. Since that's another agenda item, care if I just jump to that now? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm big on participation. To me, middle school is still a place where students need lots of opportunities to be trying new things. And so that's a big guiding principle for me is I want to provide lots of opportunities for all kids to participate. So using that kind of as my starting point, I said, what makes sense? And I think if we can still build a team with 7th and 8th graders, if we can build a soccer team, if we can build a basketball team with 7th and 8th graders, and then that's what we're going to do. And for 6th graders, they're still playing 5th grade, 5th and 6th. That's our kind of our feeder system to the middle school program. Then I fear that if we started bringing 6th graders in now, it would kill that 5th and 6th grade rec program, and then we don't have the feeder program, then we don't have kids still coming in.
Because is Conway go to 6th grade middle school too?
No.
They did.
And so that's who our rec kids still are playing 5-6 against all the other rec programs. And I think if we change that growth prevention to kind of
Then what do you want the 5th
channel.
kids?
Exactly, then you put 4th and 5th graders playing against 5th and 6th graders commonly, and that doesn't probably make a lot of sense.
So you almost have to wait until everybody's doing it.
Yeah, I think another concern or another thing that I keep in the back of my mind with it is the physical development that happens between a 6th grader and an 8th grader is pretty substantial, pretty significant. If you see a 6th grader standing next to an 8th grader, you get it. Why? Having the two of them playing the same sport may not be safe.
Do you have a policy on exceptions to that, or is it a no-go?
I don't know if we have a
Because
policy.
sometimes we have kids come through that can carry their own,
Right. Right now, we don't have a policy. I think the way I'm framing it is if we cannot field a team, let's say basketball might be an example, where we cannot get enough players between the 7th and 8th graders to have a team, then I would say now we want to start looking at other options. The next option would be, are there some 6th graders that have the skills that physically
and socially.
would be safe there, and whose parents would support them playing and who want to play? If so, then we may be bringing them up to play at the middle school team level, but also trying to still keep them playing at that practice program so we kind of keep both going. That's kind of where I am.
Scott?
It's a needs-based thing, we have done this a little bit in the past, however, it'd be for the less popular sports, but less popular sports. Skiing, alpine skiing, for example, has been 6th, 7th, and 8th sometimes the field team because there is no 5th and 6th rec program for skiing. I think across school, 5th and 6th program, right?
6th,
6th, I think. So something was individualized sport, and that would be different. As you know, years ago was a big debate on football and field hockey going to Kennett. That's been happening for quite a while now because we can't field a team at Bartlett. So, and like Bill would say, once you guys are there for something, they're part of us. So they go, you go, we go, whatever. It's just, it's got to change every year too. I don't think it was
Right.
like soccer.
I was more thinking baseball, and I think that you guys played with 8 guys.
Softball is close.
That's right. Last year we had an 8-player baseball team, and the kids said we want to stay together and play one man short.
Yeah, and I can remember when my middle son played, we definitely played teams with 6th graders and things like that in baseball. So I guess I'd like to see you guys explore that before we get rid of that baseball program.
And that's kind of the hierarchy that I would follow would be, can we do it with 7th and 8th? If so, let's do that.
Yeah.
If not, let's pull up 6th graders if we need to, if we feel like they can be safe and if they want to. And then the next year that I don't like to go to, I think we need to always keep it up as an option is, do we go to Kenneth Middle School and join into the Vance and I were counting basketball players, and I think we're right on the ball right now being able to have a team. I don't know what we've got for 6th graders right now, but it's looking close.
Lisa?
While we're on the topic of middle school sports, I know there are low numbers for this year's Nordic team. And I understand they have been busing kids down for football or field hockey and other sports. So I don't know if there's been discussion or what the status has been on maybe combining our Bartlett Nordic team with the Kennett Middle Nordic team and practicing maybe at a middle point of Whitaker Woods. So I'm curious on any information or updates.
Yeah, Whitaker is the practice space. I did talk to the Kennett Middle School coach last week about that option. She was open to it. I talked to the Kennett principal. He's open to it. I don't know if we will have anyone apply to coach Bartlett this year. If we end up with 3 or 4 kids and no coach, we would be wanting to send 6 graders there.
So if a coach applies, there would be enough with just 3 or 4 kids to support teams, a competing team?
You need 4 to compete as a team. I was talking to Dan Strickland, the AD, and we both felt like 5 might be a reasonable cutoff number because some kids are playing 2 sports. If they're playing basketball and skiing, and they say, I'm playing basketball today, coach, I'm not going to the race. Now you're down to 4. So we were thinking that might be a reasonable cutoff number. If we've got 5, we'll have our own team. If it's 3, they need to combine.
Would maybe consider 6th graders on that too.
Oh, they already are.
Jackson 6th graders are right as well?
Yeah, because personally over in our meeting.
Because there's no rec program for it, and also there's no recreational racing program. And also, a lot of the other middle schools and the tournaments that we compete in when I used to be a coach anyway, included 6th graders, so it was open to 6th graders at that time.
And that's kind of a feeder program at that level.
It is, because there's not really a race program in the Elko.
I think even 5th graders have practice but can compete.
That's right. That's right.
I just cringe anytime when we talk about that when send kids to Conway for sports because when she said them, what are the chances of it coming back again? You know?
Well, the only example.
I know, I want kids to be able to do it, obviously the situation is going to happen.
Right, but you're right, but a good example, that's when we sent our 6th graders, 5th and 6th graders to play soccer.
Yeah, changed it the following year.
The following year, and they came back to Jackson, so they can come back. I think that one of the things you have to recognize with the sports program is that there's just so many variables to it. With each sport, that's so many different variables, so there's a lot to it. I think that, I think your basis of participation being one of the most important factors. And then you can field the sport somehow, whether it's by fielding or sending them to Conway, which I don't like philosophically, but again, it's about participation, then you kind of suck it up and do it. Because it provides the opportunity. But I think that parents, board members, and coaches all recognize that there is no easy solutions to the problems that we face with sports. And the best thing that we can do is be open minded and have these discussions where we kind of bounce around ideas. Think about what the best thing is for each group of kids in each different sport, but it's kind of what we have to do. It puts an awful lot on your workload. It puts an awful lot on Mr. Cricket's workload to kind of figure all these things out. I think that we really have to put that into context and say, listen, we've got to be open-minded about this stuff and have reasonable dialogue about this stuff and come up with the best solutions that we can. Because it is tough. I mean, I'm a great example. I don't like the fact that we send our basic knowledge with these sports, but at the same time, well, geez, if it's the opportunity for my kid to play basketball by doing that, then maybe that's what I want to have happen. And I think that's it. It's a dilemma within myself. I don't like it, but geez, would I do it? I don't know. But I think it's The one thing I think that might help, I mean, because we've blown up sports so much in this valley over the last 20 years. It used to be we had 3 different sports per season, and that was it. And now we're trying to do lots of different sports with all of the kids. And I think the discussion needs to happen between the rec programs to have kind of a little bit of coordination as to what gets provided for kids at different ages, and maybe combining the rec programs with Jackson and Bartlett more with Conway to kind of develop sports from a younger age as they move forward, with the idea that the more participation, the better. Scott?
This could be a two-way street. So I had a conversation with Joe maybe a month or two ago. Kent Middle School, field hockey, girls obviously, 33 kids. Thank God we had 3 or 4.
We have
Three went down. Thank God they took them. So that program is so strong, and they have a hard time getting coaches also. So I mentioned, well, you know what? In the sense of playing, maybe a bus them back up to Bartlett, and Bartlett has a team from Conway to play. It's all about playing time. So, and I've had discussions with people, it's, not coming to fruition now, but that program stays that large. There's nothing wrong with subbing out a farm team to come to Bartlett Jackson to do that thing so kids have the opportunity to play. So there's the other extreme. I don't think Conway's gracious enough the middle school to take on our kids, those few numbers, but I'm sure they would go the other way.
That's a great idea. It's a schedule. You can work that easier as far as when they
We have a field, all you just get a coach, and it's money budget to get a coach. So, unfortunately, I think it comes down these days, coaching is a problem.
Well, while I love the concept of that, if I was a Conway parent, and my student says, "What do you mean I'm going to be playing for a Bartlett team?" Well, I want to stay playing for my Kennett school team.
Well,
so I think convincing the kids might be.
But they want a chance to play. I mean,
that's true. And that's why I like it, because we can get them more kids to participate in.
And that's in that vein, one thing I just want to keep in mind is that whatever it's field hockey or another sport or any activity, I don't think they're just doing us a favor. We are sending them our kids, and they are dedicated, hard-working students. And so, I mean, and I'm speaking now as a field hockey parent. And, I don't want our kids to be an afterthought. I want them to be part of the team that is playing. And I'm not complaining about anything, but there definitely has been a little bit of a feeling of, there's the Conway kids and then Bartlett kids. So what I'd like to see is consideration of that, and, good communication that's coming from Kennett back to us, because the fact is it's a sacrifice for those kids to be leaving the awesome programs that you guys have, right, to go do that. And I think it's important to give the opportunity to the kids. I'm personally happy because my kid would not play soccer. She only would play field hockey. So, and I think the coaching has been outstanding with that team. And Biddy and Renee have been really wonderful in many respects. But I just want to keep in mind that they're not just doing us a favor. So I don't want us to just take whatever they give us. I hope that we're also keeping in mind that maybe there would be an opportunity. And I get it, no Conway kid will want to say they're suiting up a Bartlett necessarily, but but just please keep that in mind. That
we can still say can A and B, it's just an opportunity to.
No, I mean, that's why I think at one point there were 45 kids this season. So I think the coaches have tried to do a good job of getting everybody playing time, but there's certainly a lot of pine riding too.
Lots of variables to it.
Yeah, I mean, because next year there'll be 20 kids,
And that's what happens sometimes, the more opportunities people are given, something else happens. And I've watched it at the Bartlett school over the last, I don't know how long I've been pizza, 10 years or whatever, and when football was a town sport and not a school sport, all those kids are playing on soccer. And now you've got football they can go to, so they're not playing soccer, you've got field hockey now, so they're not playing soccer.
Right.
And that's what's happening.
Yeah, so on the one hand, you might get kids playing a sport that a sport, because they wouldn't play the other one, but we saw at the Valley Cup this weekend, we had football players that didn't show up to the Valley Cup because they were at a game, so it's complicated.
Well,
It is. Gary's point that there's all these variables, and I thought about this problem of well, when we have two sports, they're competing against each other in a sense, and yet at the same time, if kids want those, and because of that, there's more students participating in school sports, I'm a supporter of that. So it's tough. I think that, in the spring we've got track, we've got baseball, and lacrosse competes with those. And so you say, sorry, no more.
It's still a club thing, and you can do both.
You know, the high school, my kids play at the high school.
Yeah.
As I said, I think that, sports used to be a school thing. Like the schools ran the programs, and since they got kind of blown up into the club sports, and so many sports are being offered now, it got kind of taken away from the school's control a little bit. Because when it was the school's control, there weren't all the variables. It was just the school, this is what the school provided. And so there wasn't any discussion about, okay, I can't do this, or this. It's like, well, no, because the school does this. And it's not that anymore. And I think we have to recognize that that's going to create lots of different variables.
It's kind of interesting. I think that's kind of where we're headed in education and in sports. I mean, we've got kids that leave to go to dance, we've got them that leave to go to gymnastics, and people are used to having more choice now. I think kids and families are wanting more choices. And
I think that the thing that has to be considered when it's happening is one thing with sports when it comes to academics is what in the schools program suffers when it is being kind of put outside of school.
So when do you think we'll have some decisions on the Nordic situation?
Gail and I talked today about trying to get some numbers from here.
Because your numbers didn't include us, right?
Right, and we are trying, Vance is going around this week. In fact, I think tomorrow he's going to the cafeteria in each lunch period to check in with kids again about who's signing up for what. I'm hoping by the end of this week we may have a firm number of who's planning or who's expecting to sign up.
And advertising it out, if there's coaching or
Right.
whatever. Okay, yeah, I mean, and obviously, if we go with the Kennett solution, which is fine, just how is that going to impact the class that's left behind and the students who are leaving?
Right.
That's a big variable, so.
Yeah, and that is another ongoing
Right.
balancing act, trying to say, do we take away that choice from kids or do we keep it in place? And we do have unified arts scheduled during that time. Students are missing unified arts, but they are also good about cycling kids back through. They're doing a kind of a mini cycle right now, so that'll end, I think, in another 3 weeks, and then they'll start cycle 2 of their unified arts rotation. So maybe somebody that was playing football didn't get art in this first cycle through, they'll get it in the winter, and they're hopefully with us in time basketball.
Someone, this might not work for Nordic, but because of the date timing of sunlight going down, but someone had mentioned there was talk at one point about maybe there was a possibility at the middle school in Kennett of them having homework time or something right after school for like 30, 45 minutes, so that would give our kids time to stay until the bell at Bartlett and then get bussed down. Is that still a topic of conversation, or is that nothing? Or?
I haven't heard about that. I don't think.
No. Is that something worth talking about? Because
Tell me that.
so, one, I do want to commend you guys because I think you really try to balance, giving opportunity to sports and then the UA, and I see how difficult that is. But there was someone who mentioned that at some point there was a discussion of maybe in the middle school, instead of starting at 2:35 or 2:45, they start at 3:15 or 3:30 or whatever,
Having
Kennett, so having sports start later. Yeah.
The only problem with that is they're still cycling on their own late bus schedule. So the middle school would leave to go to, like middle school used to leave to go to Kent, get the Kent late bus, high school late bus to come back. So the late bus from middle school is earlier than late bus from Bartlett, so you're pushing the whole.
It would be almost impossible because of the bus issue with that.
The late bus would become the late bus.
The bus was never really more of a factor for getting kids around than it is in Bartlett, in Jackson, Pittsfield, Jackson. We drive our kids everywhere. It's a very important aspect of how kids come here.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, George, you're walking through your flow chart of priorities there. Will sixth graders from Jackson who often ski with their 6, 7, 8 in Bartlett, will they be going down to Kennett
To Steve?
Yeah, to Steve.
I,
guess-
if we are bringing sixth graders, I would want Jackson to be involved in that.
Okay, so that's something to consider.
I mean, to me, it makes sense that I think of them as our sixth graders. So,
Right.
you know, even though they're still in sixth grade in this building, eventually they're going to be part of
Yeah.
that ski program.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, I'm just thinking of like the timing.
Logistically, whether that works on this end, I don't know, that's a question, you know. and-
Yeah, so just
Yeah.
one more variable.
Right.
Okay.
It is fun. The flow chart of priorities has been a lot of fun for that.
Let's, thanks, Joe, for, because it seems like you're really put that thought, but I hope it's not eating up too much of more valuable time.
It's part of the job. Hopefully I'm doing okay with it so far.
So, move on to early childhood education. Is there anything really on the agenda for that? Do we just have questions about that, or?
I think it was just kind of Bartlett put in their PCE program, and I thought it was just
Kind of about how that's going.
just kind of an update so that you folks could learn one way or another, good, bad, and different how things going.
Well, so, I mean, when our program started, I would say, let me start by saying, we're running really well right now. I walked through today, actually, spent a little bit of time in there today, and it's grown great. The startup there was a lot happening quickly. So I would say if you are going that direction, build in some time to hire your staff, those kinds of things. It all happened very quickly at Bartlett, and with a new principal, it was probably not the best person to keep running it. But some things we've learned along the way. We ended up having to put a cap in place almost retroactively, so if you are going that direction, I would suggest you know, like, what's the maximum number of students that you think you can take before it's not manageable for your school setting. I think giving staff an opportunity to figure out how they're all going to work together with students, like in our building is working beautifully now, but at the beginning of the year, there were some things to work out in terms of how do we get these little kids into an art instruction with June and Clevie. When we got into the art room, we realized they can't even reach the tables from the school. So things like that, I didn't have on my radar, certainly. So I would just say be very thoughtful about the process and the timing of it. The registration process was a little bit loose for us. People were just calling throughout the summer. We put them on the list. And before we knew it, we had a lot of students signed up.
Did you end up having to turn it any way or not?
I think there were a couple 3-year-olds who were still on the wait list as we were getting close to the school year. We didn't want to have them indefinitely waiting because other preschool programs or ESI programs were filling up. So we said at
When it
this point,
starts,
we should look elsewhere.
Yeah.
So at this point, I think the word's out that we're full at this point.
It seems like you have a lot more students than were originally projected.
Yeah.
Where are they coming from? Did they move to Bartlett?
I don't know.
They're falling out of the So they were unknown to the early childhood educators in town.
Some moved in, some were unknown.
Okay.
There's a lot more rental properties in Bartlett, so your turnover can
Oh, I got
happen
it.
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a few move-ins, but some I think were really off the radar. And as I'm looking at next year, because we're going to be getting into budget building season
Yeah.
soon, I'm trying to figure out how do I project next year's
Right.
enrollment. Because I don't know how many 2-year-olds are out there. And that's who we're talking about right now. How many 2-year-olds are out?
Yeah, I know we had a family leave and moved to Bartlett for the program, so
Okay.
are we renting or buying? How many do you have now?
Well, it depends on the day. There are 33 now on the roster, but they're not all there the same day.
Okay.
So the biggest day, I think, is 27.
Okay.
On Tuesdays, we have 27.
And it's full day, is it 9 to 3?
Yeah, same school hours.
Okay, before and after care, or
And no transportation by bus.
any tuition from other? No, because you had so many.
Right, we didn't have to entertain that.
Joe, what is your cap? Did I miss the cap?
Well, 30 is the cap. And we're at 34, but they're not all there the same day. And they were already in when we made the cap, so we said, okay, well,
So you have 34 students, but 30 is the max you can have
Per
for
day.
school per
Yeah.
day. Okay, so 30.
So are you considering opening up another classroom for next year?
I've been speaking with the superintendent about that. And my school board about that idea. That's why I'm wondering how many 2-year-olds are out there.
And no one really,
Just a little bit.
now, it's not going to be the same second.
Right.
Right, but at least having a sense of what we think is coming will help us with this decision.
In the event that your program didn't run, not that that was a possibility, in your numbers, but would you have kept your pre-early childhood staff, or would you have not kept them for that year? Like, would you move them to another position in the
So
school?
the private preschool staff?
No, so your current staff that's working in preschool, let's say, in a different scenario, that you only had 1 or 2 kids, did you guys have a plan for that? Would you have just run it with the 2 kids? And if not, would you have kept that staff paying them for the year?
Oh, I think we would have kept the teacher position for a small number of students.
Okay.
I kind of came into it partway as it was already growing, so I don't know if that conversation happened if there was was there a minimum number to run it for?
It's based on.
Okay.
If we had 10, we would still kept it running. Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
Quick question, can you just talk a little bit about your staffing? How many full-time teachers you have, how many part-time teachers you have?
In the preschool?
In the preschool for the 30.
So there's one lead teacher, there's one full-time classroom assistant, there's one part-time classroom assistant. Those were in the initial budget, and then because of some students that have been recently added, we have several one-on-ones that are working with other students.
So is the lead teacher full-time?
Yes.
Have you seen any reduction in budget for our special education students that you now are housing in-house instead of having to send them? No, stay the same.
I don't know.
Okay, no.
I don't know the answer to that.
Too early to tell.
No. Kids come and go with 118, so it's a revolving door. Right now we have lots of them. Next year might have none of them. So
Yeah, that's just it.
that's just the nature of the individual need of individual. So it's nothing to do with number.
I think maybe what Jess was trying to get at is out of district placement, like
Yeah.
a 3-year-old before you had preschool, you had to pay for them wherever they went. Have you seen any savings on that now that they're in the building?
The pieces they had, the preschool, that was already in the.
Oh, so they kind of knew already.
So there was already some built-in efficiencies.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Where in Conway or in other districts, they don't have that, so then you're paying for an itinerant to travel to the different places and provide those services. So there were already built-in efficiencies by having the Bartlett Community Preschool in that same building.
Are your little guy, your preschoolers interacting much with the K through 8?
We didn't do that at the beginning of the year, but now we're starting to build some of those in. We wanted to let them get settled in and get to know each other first before we start introducing them to some of the cultures. I mean, there's been a little bit, but
They would be welcoming.
yes, they were, and we have some things that will be coming up. Hopefully around Thanksgiving is when our first event will happen, where we're hoping to have groups of students, preschool through 8th grade, working together collaboratively in teams to start building some of those connections. Not yet. I'll let you know after the first.
Any more questions on early childhood and Bartlett? Tuition. Zach? for preschool.
And if you were going to tuition, did you have any costs or any figures?
I don't think we ever calculated anything. Well, there were conversations about having to do the same number. I don't think we ever got serious enough in the conversation.
Okay,
It's not gonna happen because of,
just seeing if we didn't need to recreate the one.
I wasn't sure if that was sixth grade tuition. That was on last year's agenda, so I didn't know if that's what.
It may have been a
Yeah.
question.
And yours is completely taxpayer funded, right? There's no contribution from caregivers?
Correct.
Yeah, does anybody know why tuition was on this town?
I know I missed the spring meeting and it was on the spring meeting.
And then so we covered.
And I think that was when you guys came back and said there'd be no difference in tuition. We would.
Yeah,
I said it's probably,
Well, for sixth grade.
for sixth
but
grade.
since it's on, can we get all of our kids to Bartlett?
I tried for it.
I figured I'd ask.
I tried.
Do we get tuition reduced to zero? Okay.
Raise
And maybe if I started with that, maybe we could talk about zero. Move on to the Kennett High School. So that's on there in case we wanted to have a discussion about joining forces to talk about the contract coming up in 5-6 years now. So, it's been on, at least on the radar, it's been on the last agenda too, just to kind of keep it in mind that we should probably, and I think it benefits both of us to probably talk about it together so that at least we've got what?
To add to that. We were at the last joint board meeting, school board meeting for SAU, and they came up with a recommendation that the school boards actually look to have somebody who's not necessarily, and Kevin, correct me, not necessarily on the school board, but someone that the school board may appoint or ask for their opinion to go and be part of the subcommittee, and then come back to the school board and report to the school board and the community as a large. Because we're going to go back and learn about the history of where we are a little bit, and then what are our options. So it's to have somebody appointed from the community as opposed to on the school board. Do that. So I think we can someone that
But I'm just curious, is it, I thought it was also part educational for school board members who are interested in that.
That's correct.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, and I think, I agree, we should do it ourselves as well, but I'd like to also probably get somebody,
I think as many people who are interested in it.
maybe a point person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The tuition contracts, for those of you who have been around, it really is a very complicated formula when you start to really dig deep. And it may be proven at some point for Jackson to have, you have an accountant or somebody who's really into saving Bartlett. And that's really what happened years ago. You did have people for free, and you did have some of the folks in Conway, some of the folks up here to really study those things but the initial part is to gain understanding of what's in it first. And that'll be on the other report when we can talk about it. But really that understanding and interest to dive into look at cooperative districts as well as the tuition contracts.
That's a great point, Kevin, too. And that's, if nothing else, not even from a negotiating standpoint, but to kind of lighten your work a little bit, that we combine when we're being educated in that, then you're not having to duplicate
That's the plan.
the same task. But that's a great
Love
point.
all of you and spend a lot of time. I mean, I'm meeting instead of 12.
In my opinion on that, we should definitely stick together as this comes, as the two districts here. But at the same time, I think there's going to be other districts that are going to help us out first. And we'll be able to learn a little bit too. Because I feel there's some other sending towns that are going to make lots of states, a lot more than we are leading up to this. So I think we're going to be able to learn something from them. And it might even be, I don't know how that would look to Conway, but having those broader discussions too, not now, in the next few years.
I think it was clear from that joint discussion that there's not even consensus on the Conway board, so they might, however they end up resolving that,
Well, ultimately, there actually this would have to vote for a co-op, correct?
Oh.
Yeah, but there's Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, it was probably right before you moved to town.
Yeah, I remember
There was
that whole thing,
there was a
yeah.
vote for co-op, and
Yeah.
I guess, for example, Jackson was the first town to technically vote that year, and Jackson voted it down, so there was no
Yeah.
longer.
But what I was getting at is Conway has a different motivation now than they did then.
Right.
Then they didn't have a building, now they do.
Right.
And Jackson's interests then were a little bit different than Bartlett, politics-wise anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that those barriers have kind of gone away. So if there's going to be a cooperative push, the more Jackson and Bartlett work together in that regard for the citizens of both Jackson and Bartlett, it'll be probably an easier discussion than if we kind of do it separately. Anyway. But, I mean, I think that the co-op thing is going to be kind of the tuition is going to, I mean, the contract's going to come due when the contract's going to come due. Whether or not the cooperative happens is independent of that. And so I mean, I think that the more we learn about what the contract is, is in the funding formula, and the funding formula, really, I mean, there isn't much we can really do about the funding formula if it's not going to really be a huge negotiating point, much as it's going to be mitigation points. What does it mean? Why is that funding formula the way it is? And then it's just going to be kind of negotiating for on the edges as far as what kind of representation do we get in the high school, and then what kind of contributions to capital are we going to be making. Those are really going to be the only negotiating points. We're not going to really be able to negotiate a different contract formula for tuition. It's going to be what it's going to be because that's the state can really come up with. It is complicated, but there isn't really much else that we're going to have to go on when it does come up. But it is learn what the formula is and why it is. Scott.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's two totally different issues. The thing is, he's trying to get this thing going, quote, co-op wise, to educate all boards right now, because we're ways off, but things come quickly. There'll be lots of discourse about this whole situation. You know, you see in the paper all the time, Eaton's got grumblings. It should. You put 10 kids on a bus and send them to Freiburg. That's Eaton. That's not Bartlett and Jackson. I mean, that's a proximity issue for them. So, you know, and they also send everyone to the Conway School. So the co-op is a separate issue, but it's also a buy-in somehow from us. But most importantly, gives you a voice on board, which was a problem back then. I mean, Conway voted first, and I thought Conway vote for the co-op. They said yes, and it was us, and we didn't have an official vote, but they voted anyway. We had the problem with not losing our 7th and 8th grade. We did individual co-ops all the way down. You know, it doesn't matter what time, right? You have different co-op language. For us, it's high school, so we could buy into that piece if you want it. I mean, you gotta have Conway to, you know, I mean, great on facilities. Guess what? They're gonna need some help here in 15, 20 years. They're not new facilities anymore. So they have to be careful too.
They need air conditioning now.
Wow.
That's what I'm referring to. Obviously, it is nothing other than
That's it.
it is nothing other than contract. The tuition formula is going to be what it's going to be.
Absolutely.
Where we're going to be able to negotiate is how much capital are we investing in, and then what kind of representation do we get for investing in that
If we
capital?
lose 1 or 2 districts, then all of a sudden our share becomes more.
Because let's say Conway doesn't, the voters don't want to give the budget control to other voters of other towns, because that's what the law is really going to be for Conway. It isn't so much the representation on the board as it's going to be when other towns are voting to support a budget that Conway's going to be liable for. That's where the call is really going to be scary for Conway. So if that doesn't happen, then we can still get representation on the board through the negotiation for the regular tuition contract.
That'll be my next question.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be voting representation necessarily, but it's representation. And that's what all happens. I think the more we learn about what co-op is, the more we learn about what the funding formula is, and where we can negotiate things, the better off we're all going to be. So,
It's a community education process.
But in the cooperative scenario, all of the people who vote in the cooperative can change the rules. So you can have a representative from Jackson on the co-op board in a year or 2 years. They can change that and not have representation from their town. That's one of the difficulties with everyone being part of the one school. Same way.
Let's say
Either way, if we even in Jackson and Bartlett, we're talking about it, especially, and get hit or favored.
I guess I'm a little confused. So when you refer to the cooperative thing, can that mean different things to different people?
It can, and that's kind of what we're talking about. So that's why we need to educate, not only
What it actually is.
not only the public, we need to educate ourselves as well. The boards need to educate. Not only does the public need to be educated, but more importantly, before that happens, the boards have to be educated. So when we talk about it to the public, we're talking about the same types of things. So we're
There
discussing.
are laws that govern cooperatives.
So we're discussing both things right now. We're discussing both just a contract for tuition with Conway to send our high schools there, which is coming to close, which without renegotiating, basically, we would stay the same, which maybe that's fine. So we would
Less the bond.
Less the bond issue, but we'd still have to pay some towards capital. Okay, so we'll have to renegotiate something. Outside of that, there's going to be, there's a discussion about the cooperative district here. And it's a separate issue, but it's coming up now because the contract's coming up.
And you said the contract's coming up in 5 to 6 years, is that correct?
There's a 3-year, there's something that comes up with
We have to let them know.
commitment.
We feel like I know we're going to renew it in 3
Yeah,
years.
so I think
It's
it's,
2027 is when it totally expires. So 2024 is when you have, but, there is a process for all of these things, and it takes a while. So if you were to actually form a study committee on a cooperative, each town actually has to have that on their warrant article prior to beginning that study committee, or the forming committee, if you will. So right now, there are conversations all over the place. You're right. And even regarding the tuition contracts. So you have Albany, who has a lot of students, but very low property value. So they want a formula that's more weighted towards property value. And then you have Eaton that has more property value, but very few students. So I'm sure the conversation will do a lot of this, just like it did 18 years ago or 15 years ago. But I think in fairness to all of the communities, you have to go through that process because it hasn't really been studied because there's been no need to, because people have signed a 20-year agreement. So the first step is really to gain an understanding as board members and as community members as to, one, how are you going to pay for this through the tuition contracts? And two, what are the governance options that are out there? In both of those require a great deal of time to study, to have discourse related to it, and to look at all the different options. Do we get back to the same place where we're at? Maybe, but at least people can make informed decisions if you go through that process. And it will be probably a multi-year process, at least to gain true understanding.
And the other thing, you have a lot of history in our town here about people who went through this, we've done this before. And that was 15, 20 years ago. And now we have a new crop of people in town that, most of us just moved in at the cusp of that.
That's right.
And we don't know anything about that. So we all have to relearn and re-educate what the history a little bit was, and then why we are where we are, and what options we have.
And there are going to be more options. I mean, you look at some of the legislation that's going out there, and that's what people are looking at as well.
So last spring at an SAU 9 board meeting, it was discussed, and I was talking about coordinating that discussion at the SAU 9 board with a community kind of committee that would all do it together. Kind of everyone's talking on the same page at the same time. We have discussions.
So who drives this process? Is it your office or is it SAU?
Well, just from an efficiency standpoint, rather than providing the same information 12 different times, we can do that, but it's not as efficient. And it makes sense that if you put strong minds together, then you're going to answer those questions when it doesn't really count, right? So people will go through that process and gain better understanding, right? So if you and I have disagreements and we continue to dialogue, eventually we're going to come to some landing spot that says, this is what it really means. So that is my plan, I guess selfishly, is to put players who are interested in gaining an understanding in resources. So if you're going to take a look at cooperative school districts, I'll probably bring up somebody from the New Hampshire School Board Association who deals with this all the time, and maybe an attorney or two to say, here are some that you can take a look at. Everyone hears the same presentation and the same conversation, gets the same resources and materials, so then we can take it a step further. Same thing with tuition contracts. If you get, 2 or 3 people taking a look at, the percentages increase or the capital improvement plans or the different formulas, what happens if you go instead of 35% equalized valuation and 65% ADM, what if it were 70-30? And what would that look like? What if it's 50-50? And then to take a look at it, because if you're doing one set of spreadsheets, punching in the numbers, you can see what happens in Bartlett and Jackson and in all of those different places. So that's really, I guess, selfishly, rather than just answering one question 3 months later, 3 months later, 3 months later, let's pull the players together and move forward. And everybody's going to benefit because we'll bring it back to the SE 9 board and do those presentations periodically anyway.
So this is not for the individual boards, we have one action item that is first.
I'm sorry?
Do we have one action item that is first for individual school boards?
So on November 9th, I'll be asking for who would be interested in taking a look at the tuition contracts and who would be interested in taking a look at the cooperative governance piece. And then after that, we had an organizational meeting with some goals for, the rest of the year, and then when to report back and review that.
And Kevin, just to bring it back, you're looking for citizens who might be interested? Board members?
Board members first, and then as appropriate, bringing in experts in the field.
Got it.
No, Friday.
Oh, okay.
On this high school topic, that's somewhat different. I just wanted to clarify, because it's not always put out there. There's a resource in the town like Jackson and Bartlett. When we send our kids off to high school, and OPL, that you are technically responsible for kids all the way through high school, correct? The Jackson kids. Not really? All right. What about do we have anybody, and we've talked about this for years, do we have a resource in our town or in the Bartlett Jackson area that we could go to as parents or school board members with a student in high school to get to? Do we have Vicky is our...
Through high school too?
Yes.
Through high school.
Vicky Garland.
Yeah. For Bartlett, yeah.
So she's the contact person.
That's what we paid her for, her Bartlett.
So I don't know if we said, I don't, because I'm on the school board, I knew that. But I don't know if everybody knows that when they send their kid to high school. If they don't need Vicky before then, they may not know that.
She used to send welcome letters. I can check in with her.
I never got one.
Jeff, will you pay just like
Yeah.
We talked about that more already.
Yeah.
Let's get these guys out of here and start ours.
Because I have one board member issue this one.
Okay, let's get to that. Board member issues.
I just wanted to clarify, that's cost on. Maybe I'll talk to one of the meeting. I want clarification on the buses. What happens when a Jackson bus is used for a middle school event? Came up last year.
Let's keep it last year, they Bartlett pays for it.
Yeah, that's what I just wanted to clarify, are they, because I know it's happened several times this year already.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
We should check that with the SEA. We want to confirm to them how that works. It's one more question for that.
Kevin, do you remember that had happened last year where the Jackson bus was used? I think we did resolve.
It's for like field trip or
It's
something.
taken their kids down Conway, sometimes it takes the middle school soccer.
That Jackson can check with through the SEA office and confirm how that works. Joe, you'll realize that when I run these meetings, Any other business is actually a big subcategory of every single category. We've already covered any other business. Jump into that.
Yeah, I just want to look back around to this meeting minutes from May, this discussion of committees. Is there any update on that? Like, what is?
Oh, so I did want to address this a little bit. If there are any committee things, we can be on like a curriculum committee and all there, I think we just don't participate, we don't have the time. But if there's anything you think that we should be part of or something like that, and want to just give us a heads up, like, hey, you might want to come to this one. Because I was in the school good a couple months ago, so you're coming to your policy meeting, and I'm like, no, we don't need to go to our policy meeting.
They're really exciting.
But sometimes they might make sense for us to go to, it's just a nuts and bolts thing, but we're keeping that thing for us to, a policy committee. If it never works out for you guys, if that makes sense, don't hesitate to call us and ask us. But if there's any curriculum meetings or things like that that you want us there for, or you think like, hey, you guys have these questions all the time, this is when you might want to kind of show up and come so that we don't waste more time here.
Are you guys contacting them in December?
Yeah, I'm super organized. I'm a black hole of those. So, yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, that would be great. Any committee meetings, every time you guys make one, if somebody can ask a question, we should actually be here. So, yeah.
Even if it's an afterthought.
Yeah, interest in ability varies by board member because of schedules and how busy life is, but if we can participate, how that one applies, it can do that.
That's next meeting is May 7th in Bartlett. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Can we make it another hour, or do you like the casualness of it, you know?
We're going to be here for 3 more hours.
Well, we can talk about that as we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.